Welcome to Ottawa Business Journal's coverage of COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Michael Curran, the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal. Today marks a rather dubious milestone when it comes to COVID-19. It's approximately 1 month today that the seriousness and urgency of the pandemic became clear here in Ottawa and far beyond, ushering in a business environment never seen before. To take stock of where Ottawa's business community stands 30 days into COVID-19 outbreak, we've got a great panel to share some insights on what's happening in our city. First, we have Su-Ling Ching, the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Hello, Su-Ling.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, Nick. Nick Quain, the founder and advisor to the city's technology sector, now focused on Invest Ottawa's accelerator program. Hello again, Nick.
Hey, Michael.
And Rob Woodbridge, sometimes Rob, a man that defines easy explanation, but a man who's worn many hats in his 30-year, way longer than 30-year career in Ottawa, from leading angel investors to running companies, now GM of one of the world's largest sharing economy companies, Lyft. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
That was a mouthful, but your career isn't exactly a direct line. So, Su-Ling, let's start off with you. I think you'll have a story that you'll tell decades from now, Su-Ling, and related to your career, and that is that you were permanently named the president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, 163-year-old organization, the day before, I'll say, all hell broke loose.
That's right. That's right.
You're 30 days into your permanent job. How is Ottawa's business community faring? I know that's a big question, but let's kick off with that.
Sure. It is a big question. Obviously, the same as the rest of the world, we are in a bit of turmoil, plagued with uncertainty about what is to come and how to operate in this time. But what we have found at the Board of Trade is that we've had tremendous involvement of our members, the members of our business community, our stakeholders, our partners, in trying to gauge what is, to be an understatement, an evolving situation. Each week seems to bring something new and different around what is actually happening in our community, how we're responding to it, further tweaking how we're responding to it, and then trying to ascertain what can we do to move forward post COVID-19. So for the Board of Trade, we're involved in many conversations with business and community leaders, with our colleagues at the Ontario and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and many officials at all levels of government, just trying to keep the conversation going between what's important for us as a community in terms of public health, which we also say is the first step to economic recovery, because until we have our the pandemic under some control, or at least having an idea of where it's going to go, it's difficult to understand what our economic recovery will look like. So keeping the conversation going seems to be the prescription of the day. And we were laughing earlier, there are many different opinions out there about what we're going through and how we're going to move forward. But it's those various opinions and that out of the box thinking and the ability for business leaders, to be vulnerable and to work together at a deeper level of collaboration and compassion than I think I've ever experienced in my own career.
Nick, I'd like to go to you next. You have quite a unique perspective. You're working quite closely with Invest Ottawa and their accelerator program. Those types of companies are quite unique, as you know. They might be pre-revenue. They might be looking for their first customer. They're not your typical Main Street restaurant that we're hearing about so much in the news. So tell me, how do you think those companies are doing 30 days in?
Well, I mean, it's a mixed bag, Michael. I mean, you've got a small subset, I'd say 10% of the companies that this has opened up an opportunity for them. If you're in education, if you're in cybersecurity, if you're in healthcare, digital health, there's all sorts of opportunities that have opened up that perhaps accelerate some of the opportunities and open new doors for you. Then there is another portion, probably more than 10%, that's on the other side that we're targeting. Their customer segments are in travel or in hospitality, or other sectors, live events. Those types of industries are completely up in the air of what they're, how long this is going to go on and what that industry is going to look like when we come out on the other side. And certainly retail, tech companies that are focusing retail segment as well. And then you've got this middle group who are a little bit, like many small businesses, in a bit of a quandary on how to plan for this, right? So what are things going to look like in July? What are things going to look like in September? If you don't have the answer for how commerce and business is being conducted and how society is being run, it becomes really hard to do your cash flow statement or your projections or to even get an idea on anticipating what your revenue stream is. And I think the challenge, there's the good and the bad. The bad is that more of these startups are companies that are a little bit more hand to mouth. They're running on the edge always of not having an abundance of cash and kind of getting by month by month or quarter by quarter. On the other hand, they're more nimble, and this is going to blow up the industry a little bit in certain areas. And we're already seeing disruption, and we're not going to completely go back to normal on the other side here. So perhaps the companies or those with the best opportunity are those early stage companies that are thinking, that can pivot quickly and can adapt, certainly bigger than large companies, to some of the changes that are going to take place permanently in our business communities.
Okay, thanks, Nick. And Rob, I want to touch base with you on the question too. I think you've had your finger in the pulse of the community in so many different ways, really, as I indicated in your intro. Right now, of course, you're working for Lyft, a sharing economy app, but you've done everything from baseball to venture capital to angel investing and all this great stuff. So what's your kind of, if you zoom out, how do you think the business community specifically, or the city, in fact, is doing 30 days into this?
Michael, it's a great question. Certainly, I echo what Suling and Nick have said. For those interested in watching the video, this is my rally beard for humanity against COVID-19.
We're cheering for it.
The longer it gets, as my kids say, the longer we're in isolation and we're stuck with each other. So yes. I look forward the day I can shave it. And I think that's what's so interesting about what's going on here, just from, if you look at it from purely analytical, is that this is the time where you start to see, as Nick was alluding to, some of these companies really taking a lead in an industry that will evolve as a result of this. And you look at all of the kind of the downturns that we've had in my career. I've seen 4 of them, or challenges in the economy. And from those challenges, some of the greatest companies ever have emerged. Like, you think about the .com destruction and what emerged out of that. I mean, Amazon suffered through that and came out and 20 years later, Amazon is what they are. Even Shopify had its start after the .com implosion as a result of that .com implosion. And then the financial impact as well, with the financial recession that we went through in 2009. I mean, my company suffered, but some companies emerged out of this. And I think that's the thing that comes from these things. And through all the adversity that we're going through, it is very much about what comes out the other end. And some of the greatest companies, I believe, are going to be made today that will take us through in the next 15 or 20 years as a result of what's going on right now, and the thinking, or the changing of thinking, the way that we do business. So I think that the city is poised. The city has done the work. Nick has done the work. Suling has done the work. The business community has done the work to make sure these companies are emerging. Like, if you think Paul Lem's company right now is in the middle of this revolution, and it has taken him 15 years even to get to this point where they're about to take off, and it's as a result of something as catastrophic as this. So I'm optimistic. The business guy in me is so optimistic about what is coming down the road. We just have to get through this, which is the biggest challenge. And I think the community is rallying quite well in that regard.
Spartan Bioscience, like you said, might be the perfect example of that. Paul's been in the city for so long, trying to make progress with his testing product, and now he's one of a handful of companies being named by the Prime Minister in a very practical way to do rapid testing. So in your role as CEO, President, CEO of the Board of Trade, you really have access, and you're called upon to really voice the opinions of the business community, what the business community needs. Tell us how you've been interacting with public officials over the last 30 days and what they've been, perhaps maybe what they've been asking you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, in the beginning, they were asking, what our businesses needed. And I agree with both Nick and Rob. I think there are tremendous opportunities that are going to come out of this. And no matter what business you're in, it's going to force you to start to look at where you can be innovative in the future forevermore. Like Nick, what we often talk about is, not companies in tech, but companies using tech to conduct their businesses. This is catapulting everyone into that area now, that frankly, that we needed to be in. And so they're asking, what do the businesses need? And of course, the front line of this, even though many small, medium enterprises are flourishing and looking for new opportunities, many are, as Nick said, hand to mouth. So cash was number one, right? And so getting cash into the hands of the people, the businesses, and to keep the economy liquid in some way. So that was sort of the first thing. And then when the program started rolling out, then the next thing was, how are they working? So then getting the feedback from all of our businesses around, who was falling through the cracks, what roadblocks were there to accessing the funds that the government intended. And my colleagues at the Ontario and the Canadian Chamber, like, we all agree, we've never seen, even our local representatives here, we've never seen the kind of collaboration and reach out and open-mindedness of government officials to make it work. Like it's and it will forever change, I think, how we interact. And someone was saying the other day, what this is going to show us is where the fault lines are in our systems, in our businesses, and in our communities. So what things did we take for granted going into this that we now realize cannot withstand any stress whatsoever? And I think it will definitely change the way we advocate as an organization, the way we support our businesses, and the way business owners start to look at their own businesses.
That's a good points there. Nick, a couple minutes ago, you talked about the potential that this type of crisis unleashes, and the fact that a lot of the companies that you deal with are in that accelerator mode. They're small, they're nimble, they're not set in their ways. So that presents a lot of opportunities for them. And of course, we're not trying to be too opportunistic in this. We appreciate there's a health crisis going on. But what type of advice might you be lending those companies? So if it was, hey, this might be an opportunity, how do they start thinking about those opportunities when we're just kind of drowning in uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard at this time to have those conversations with customers, with your market segment, to try and dig beneath the surface of where are these new opportunities without being tone deaf to what's happening around you, right? You're reaching out to maybe your customer to try and identify a new market opportunity, and they're like, listen, I don't even know what's happening in my revenue stream. Seriously? Or like that, you have to be careful. I think that a lot of the companies are reaching out to their best customers, their top customers, just to check in as part of the relationship. Reaching out to new customers can be a little bit tricky right now, depending on what segment you're in, but reaching out to your existing customer base to check in with them, see how they're using your product, see what you can do to help, empathize with them a little bit. And that'll be the beginning of uncovering maybe some of those new opportunities that are emerging as you talk to that customer, and now their staff are all working from home, and staff that were using tools that perhaps weren't used to using before. We have one of our companies that works in the construction space, Go4 on the delivery side, and they've seen even though there's been a cutback in the amount of construction that's going on, they've seen this huge lift in the number of orders for them, because it's only curbside and online. So you think of all of these old school contractors that now want their equipment and they have to use the online tool, and they never have before. It's increased this adoption of digital tools and these types of things that I think is an amazing opportunity. I think the challenge for that group, even though I'm optimistic about their ability to adapt, is that most of the government programs, subsidies, and things that have been put in place are in place for more traditional businesses. They're for businesses that either, you're a restaurant that revenue just got completely shut off, so here's this program for you, or there's some type of drop in your revenue that's measurable year over year over the previous quarter. That's much more difficult for the early pre-revenue or early revenue companies to demonstrate. So I do think we'll have to see in the next phase of government programs something that helps create or maintain this innovation startup ecosystem, because that is a fear that it's great to talk about how nimble you are, but when there's a bunch of customers out there and there's the amount of disposable discretionary dollars for companies and people have dropped, it makes it harder for these early stage companies to emerge. So there's a bit of good news and bad news there for the startup ecosystem.
Rob, we'll wrap things up with this question. Maybe we'll do a little touch base with everyone. But so Ottawa's unique. Many cities are unique. Ottawa's unique in its composition. I often think of, in fact, it was Max Keeping way back when that would talk about the local economy as a three-legged stool that was, tourism, the government, and technology, or at least that's my memory of what he said. So that makes us unique, though. We've got some unique attributes. So I guess what I'm wondering is we start to try to shift our focus just a little bit to the future, not ignoring, again, the health pandemic that lies ahead and possibly some worse days for our city. But if we try to look ahead a little bit, how do you think a city like Ottawa might rebound?
So, I think that, this has been a human challenge, obviously, because the severity with which it was imposed and how long it has endured on humans is going to take its toll. And I think that one of the things that I hope that we emerge out of this into is a more empathetic city. Now, this city has always been very supportive. It is not a typical city, as you said. It is very supportive of the business community, of the technology community, of the services community. It's unlike any other community. I'll go out and say that. You are a part of a family here in the city of Ottawa. And I think that what we quickly realized is when businesses started closing their doors and laying people off, all of a sudden there was no income for a lot of people. And there was a brand new reality for them to look at those that have already been in that boat for many, many, many years, those in subsidized housing, those with food challenges, getting fresh food and having a roof over your head seems like table stakes for us, but for many people it isn't. And I think that one thing that this has shown us is that we are all very close. We teeter very, very, very close to that kind of requirement, needing subsidized housing or subsidized food. And I think that hopefully some folks have dipped their toe into it and have realized how just challenging it is to raise a family in that environment. And I hope that what we come out of this is much more empathy for those that live that every single day, whether there's a pandemic or not. And we start to change the way that we look at the social support in this city even more. And it's even to the point where, we accept food banks, we accept subsidized housing as part of the landscape of Ottawa, but our goal should be to eradicate that. And I think that this is one of those moments where we can look at it and say, we're helping everybody move beyond this. And the best day that we could ever have in the city of Ottawa, and it could be triggered from this, is the day that we close all food banks because we don't need them anymore in the city of Ottawa. So that's what I'm hoping. Maybe but that's my hope.
That's a nice thought. And in fact, let's wrap up on a decidedly optimistic tone maybe here. So I'll touch base with all of you on this. So maybe in 20 seconds or less, give me a sense of what makes you optimistic. So we're 30 days into this. There might be some worse days to come in terms of the health impact of COVID-19 in our city. But what's one thing that makes you optimistic as we move into this next phase? Suling, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. Well, that's why I hang around with Rob, because he makes me optimistic. Okay. I want to say, I think what Rob is saying is that he hopes that will make people more empathetic. And I think what will happen out of this is it will become a business imperative for our community to be more empathetic and for global communities to be, because this has been is a great big lesson. And we preach this all the time at the Board of Trade. We're all connected. Like, you may be a huge multinational corporation, or you may be a Main Street, business sort of getting by month to month, but you are connected. And this has shown us in 4 very short weeks how connected we all really are. And so it's, when we talk about corporate social responsibility, when we're all riding high and doing our thing, it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. It is, it's not the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. And hopefully, I think there's no way for us to get around what that lesson will be. And that makes me optimistic, because I believe that by working together as a community, the sense of communities will be stronger now more than ever. And I believe that will be our winning combination, particularly I believe that for Ottawa.
Neat. And Nick, what makes you a bit optimistic?
Well, I'm super optimistic, because we already lived in the best country in the world, in the best city, in the best country in the world before this started to happen. And then you look at the makeup of this city. We have the highest density of technology workers in North America in this city. We have the federal government whose employment is not going to go down, and they're going to continue to procure and work with our private enterprises. And then the biggest areas of growth of jobs are telecommunications with Sienna and Ericsson. They're not going away. That business is booming. Telecommunications booming right now, and e-commerce with the likes of Shopify. So you're going to see our largest employers still be incredibly strong, and the trickle down for when things open back up to hospitality, to retail, to construction, to services. Ottawa's going to be in better shape than arguably any other city in North America, and we were the best city to live in before this happened. So I'm very optimistic about what this means for Ottawa going forward. It's still awful, relatively speaking, in Ottawa compared to what it was a month or two ago, but just look around in order to feel a little bit better about where we are.
Yeah, I would suggest that we can recover possibly faster than a lot of communities. So it's a good point. And Rob, the last word goes to you. What makes you optimistic?
Just the versatility of this city. I think that that we often talk about there being a gap of mid-sized companies in this city, and so we have some large established companies, and we have a whole bunch of smaller, more, as Nick calls them, more nimble startups that can pivot on a dime. And I think that the collective IQ of this city when it comes to technology has gone through the roof as a result of these last 30 days. So we're using stuff that we've never used before. We're connecting in ways we've never connected before. And it may have been unsettling for the first couple of weeks, but I think people are getting into a rhythm now of these video calls and staying connected and more connected than we ever have. And I think that all that means is that these smart companies that have been incubated in the city of Ottawa that are nimble, can readjust, find new opportunities, and kind of, I don't know, scale outside of this once it's all done. We just need to go ahead. I think that everybody's waiting for that moment that we can actually leave our houses. I think collectively.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yes, on this end of the Easter weekend. So listen, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank once again Su-Ling Ching from the Ottawa Board of Trade, and Nick Quain from Invest Ottawa, and Rob Woodbridge from everything that Rob does. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. Be safe, and please stay tuned for more coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic on obj.ca. We're updating the website on a regular basis throughout the day, and you can tune in to some of these videos on YouTube, or once again, visit obj.ca. Thanks, everyone.